The smell of charred bone hung heavy over Indiana, but the real horror lay buried beneath the pig pen. Belle didn't just break hearts, she literally butchered them. Lured by the promise of love and ended by the swing of a cleaver. Behind her farm of horrors, dozens of headless men were waiting to tell their side of the story. The quiet windswept town of Porte, Indiana at the turn of the 20th century, a widow lived on a farm that seemed to swallow people whole. Her name was Belle Gunness, but history remembers her as the Black Widow of the Midwest. Standing at 6 feet tall and weighing over 200 pounds, Belle was a physical anomaly. But it was the cold, calculated darkness behind her eyes that truly defied nature. Belle's methodology was rooted in gruesome efficiency. She didn't just kill for passion, she killed for profit, turning her homestead into a literal slaughterhouse for human beings. Her preferred prey? Lonely, wealthy men who responded to her classified ads in Norwegian language newspapers. She promised a home-cooked meal and a lifetime of companionship, but what she delivered was a slow, agonising descent into a shallow grave. The horror usually began at the dinner table. Belle would serve a heavy meal laced with strychnine, a convulsant that causes the muscles to contract so violently that the spine can snap. Imagine the victim's terror as their body arched involuntarily, their breath hitching as their lungs paralysed, all while Belle watched with a placid, terrifying calm. Once the life had drained from them, the real work began. Belle was no stranger to the anatomy of death. Taking her victims to the cellar, she used her skills as a farmhand to dismember them. She didn't just bury bodies, she processed them. She would systematically remove the limbs at the joints, sawing through bone and sinew with the practiced hands of a butcher. The heads were severed, the torsos opened, and the remains were often dissolved in quicklime or fed to her pigs. To Belle, a human being was simply a collection of parts that needed to be disappeared. The true scale of her depravity wasn't revealed until April 1908, when a fire levelled the Gunness farmhouse. In the smouldering ruins, investigators found the headless body of a woman, initially thought to be Belle, and the charred remains of her 3 children. But as the authorities began to dig in the soft earth of the pig pen, the ground began to yield a sickening harvest. They found soft spots in the dirt. One after another, the investigators unearthed burlap sacks containing the mangled, decomposed remains of men who had travelled to Porte with high hopes and full pockets. Some were just collections of bones, others were still in states of petrification that turned the stomachs of even the most hardened lawmen. In total, the parts of at least 11 people were pulled from the muck, though the true count is estimated to be over 40. And Belle was never caught. The headless body in the fire was significantly smaller than Belle's imposing frame, leading many to believe she had staged her own death using the victim's corpse. She vanished into the shadows of history, leaving behind a blood-soaked legacy and a question that still haunts the Midwest. How many more bodies are still sleeping beneath the soil of Indiana?